What we wanted to do in this project, however, is not take things, shall we say, at face value. Because we knew that this work would be scrutinized and heavily challenged.
The world stood still when the genetic code of the Spencer family was finally cracked, revealing a truth so massive it redefined the royal family overnight. Frances Shand Kydd was a woman of mystery, but her DNA just confessed what she never could. We are talking about a hidden ancestry from the East India Company era that was scrubbed from the official books. This is the smoking gun that proves the Spencers were not the pure aristocrats they claimed to be. And get this, the proof is now living in the veins of Prince William himself. You won't believe how deep this cover-up actually went. Secret DNA code. Now, for starters, this marker is incredibly rare in Europe. In fact, it is almost never found there. It belongs to the Indian subcontinent, specifically around the area of Surat. This means that Frances, and therefore Diana, had a direct ancestor who was Indian. This woman was named Eliza Couarc. Back in the early 1800s, she had a relationship with a Scottish merchant named Theodore Forbes. They had a daughter named Catherine, and that lineage leads directly down to the Spencers. This is a key detail because for 2 centuries, the family records were carefully managed to make it look like Eliza was simply Armenian. They did this to avoid the social stigma of having mixed blood during the colonial era. But the DNA does not care about social status or old lies. The crazy part is that this genetic proof was only discovered recently, long after Frances had passed away in 2004. People are still obsessed with the idea of royal purity, but this proves that the future of the British monarchy is actually much more diverse than anyone realized. It is not that simple, though, because this discovery also sheds light on why Frances might have felt like such an outsider in her own world. She was a woman caught between a rigid aristocratic system and a secret she might not have even fully understood herself. When you look at the numbers, Catherine Scott Forbes was Diana's great-great-great-grandmother. That makes Diana 164th Indian. It might sound like a small amount, but in the world of DNA, it is a permanent and undeniable stamp. This is hands down one of the biggest shocks to the royal system in modern history. Nobody expected this to happen. But the science is clear. The English rose actually had roots in the warm soil of India. But what was it like for Frances to live with the weight of being a Spencer while the world judged her every move? Everything changed for her when the pressure of the family became too much to handle. Frances Shand Kydd was not born into a quiet life. She was the daughter of the 4th Baron Fermoy, and she married John Spencer, the 8th Earl Spencer, when she was only 18 years old. Here, from the very beginning, her life was a series of intense pressures. She was expected to produce a male heir for the Spencer estate, which is a massive responsibility for a teenager. In 1960, she gave birth to a son named John, but he tragically passed away only 10 hours after he was born. Instead of receiving comfort, Frances was treated like a broken machine. The Spencers sent her to various clinics in London to undergo humiliating tests to see why she failed to provide a healthy boy. The trauma of this experience stayed with her for the rest of her life. Eventually, she did have more children, including Diana and the current Earl Spencer, Charles. However, the marriage was already falling apart under the weight of expectations and grief. In 1969, the world was shocked when Frances decided to leave the marriage for another man, Peter Shand Kydd. This was a massive scandal at the time. She was labeled the Bolter, a woman who ran away from her duties. But here's the deal. The court case that followed was even more brutal. Her own mother, Lady Fermoy, testified against her in court. She told the judge that Frances was an unfit mother. Because of that testimony, Frances lost custody of her children, including Diana, who was only 7 years old at the time. Imagine the pain of losing your children to a husband you did not love, all because your own mother betrayed you. It is no wonder that her relationship with Diana was always complicated. They were two women trying to survive in a world that wanted them to be perfect icons, not human beings with flaws and secrets. Frances spent much of her later life in a remote house on the Isle of Sail, about 10 miles, 16 kilometers, from the nearest town. She sought peace. But the rumors never stopped following her. There were whispers that she had secrets she was waiting to confess. things about the family that would change everything. But she was a woman of high pride. She didn't want to be a victim. She wanted to be herself. The crazy part is that while she was being shamed by the press, the very bloodline they were protecting was already full of the secrets she carried. But a hidden paper trail was about to pull a forgotten woman out of the shadows. The Armenian bloodline secrets. To understand why the DNA caused such a stir, you have to go back to the year 1812 in the city of Surat, India. This was the era of the East India Company, where British merchants were making fortunes in the East. Theodore Forbes was one of those men. He fell in love with a local woman named Eliza Kewark. In those days, these relationships were common, but they were often kept out of the official family trees once the men returned to Scotland or England. Theodore and Eliza had children together, including a daughter named Catherine. When Theodore eventually left India, he sent Catherine back to Scotland to be raised. However, he knew that his family would not accept a girl with Indian heritage. So the story was changed. Eliza was described as Armenian. At the time, being Armenian was considered acceptable and exotic enough to pass in high society without causing a scandal. This lie was so successful that it lasted for over 200 years. The Spencers and the Forbes family grew in power, and eventually the lineage led to Frances and then to the most famous woman in the world. What most people do not realize is that the Armenian story was a carefully crafted shield. It protected the family's status as pure British nobility. But science eventually caught up with the fiction. In 2012, researchers used mitochondrial DNA, which tracks the direct maternal line. Since this DNA only passes from mother to daughter, they could trace it all the way back to Eliza Kewark in India. They found the R30B haplogroup, which is undeniably South Asian. There is no way to fake that. It proved that the Armenian ancestor was actually Indian. This discovery was a WTF moment for royal historians. It meant that Diana was the first member of the immediate royal circle to have documented non-European ancestry. It was a secret that Frances's ancestors had worked so hard to hide, but it was sitting in her cells the whole time. It makes you wonder if Frances ever looked at the old family letters and saw the truth between the lines. The documents from the East India Company are clear, showing Theodore's letters where he mentions Eliza. He didn't see her as a secret. He saw her as the mother of his children. It was the society back in Britain that forced the secret into existence. But what does this mean for the boys who grew up in the shadow of this lineage? The throne itself now carries a code that spans 2 different continents. The impact of this DNA proof goes far beyond just a fun fact in a history book. It directly affects the future King of England, Prince William. Because Princess Diana carried this specific Indian DNA, she passed it on to both of her sons. Now here is a bit of science. While men do not pass on mitochondrial DNA to their own children, they still carry those genes in every cell of their bodies. This makes William and Harry the very first British royals to have proven South Asian heritage. It is a biological fact that changes how we look at the entire royal family tree. This is a key detail because it humanizes a family that is often felt distant and unreachable. For a long time, the royals were seen as people who only married within a very small circle of European aristocrats. This DNA discovery shows that even the most traditional families are actually a mix of different cultures and stories. The secret that Frances Shand Kydd's mother and ancestors tried to bury actually makes the royal family more relevant to the modern world. We live in a global society today, and it turns out the royal family is a global family too. The theory of the hidden cousins. When we talk about Eliza Kewark, we are talking about a woman who lived in India hundreds of years ago. If she had one daughter who moved to England, what happened to the rest of her family? One of the wildest theories out there is that Prince William might have thousands of distant cousins living in India right now who have no idea they are related to the British king. Imagine living a normal life in a busy city like Mumbai or a small village in Gujarat, and you share the same blood code as the man on the British postage stamp. Some researchers wonder if there are other branches of Eliza's family that stayed in India and had children of their own. If we track down every person with that specific DNA signature, the royal family tree might start looking less like a small bush and more like a giant forest that stretches across the entire planet. There are also rumors about whether the royal family knew about this long before the DNA tests were made public. Some people believe that the men in gray suits, the advisors who run the palace, knew about the Spencer family's Indian roots for decades. The theory is that they kept it quiet because in the past, being mixed race was seen as something that might make the public less supportive of the monarchy. But if they did know, why did they let the secret come out now? Some think it was leaked on purpose to make the monarchy look more modern and diverse. In a world where the UK is home to millions of people with South Asian heritage, having a king with Indian DNA is actually a huge PR win. It makes the king look like he represents everyone, not just a small group of people. People always said Princess Diana was different. She had a common touch and a way of connecting with people from all walks of life. A wilder theory suggests that maybe her DNA played a role in her personality. While genes don't exactly control your kindness, some people wonder if her outsider heritage gave her a subconscious feeling that she didn't quite fit the rigid old-fashioned mold of the palace. She was often called a breath of fresh air, but it turns out she was bringing a much older, much deeper history into the palace than anyone could have guessed. She wasn't just changing the rules of how royals act. She was literally changing the biology of the royal line. There are still many rumors in the air about other secrets Frances might have had. What we can confirm is that she lived a life of heavy burdens. She was a woman who lost her children in a messy divorce, lost her reputation in the newspapers, and lost her peace of mind while being chased by photographers. All the while, she was carrying a genetic history that would one day shock the world. She died in June of 2004. While there was no dramatic deathbed confession recorded by her doctors, her DNA provided all the confession we needed. She didn't have to say a word for the truth to come out. The science did the talking for her. The story of Eliza Kework and Frances Shand Kydd is a reminder that the truth always finds a way out. You can hide a woman in a family tree by calling her Armenian instead of Indian to make her fit in better. And you can change her name in a ledger or stop talking about her in the drawing rooms of big mansions. But you cannot change the code written in the blood. Every time Prince William meets a world leader or visits a different country, he is carrying that history with him. It makes you wonder what else is hiding in the royal archives. Are there other ancestors from Africa, Asia, or the Americas that have been edited out of the official history books? So here's the deal. We often think we know everything about famous people because we see them on TV every day. But there are always layers beneath the surface. The Spencer family secret was hidden for 2 centuries, proving that even the most scrutinized families have shadows they keep in the dark. The DNA did not just prove a secret true, it proved that the world is much more connected than we think. The genes have spoken, but the history books are still being written as we speak. As Prince William prepares to one day take the throne, he isn't just a symbol of British tradition. He is a symbol of a changing world where your past, no matter how hard people try to hide it, eventually defines your future. Could there be other hidden lineages within the world's most famous families that we still don't know about? If you found this deep dive into the Spencer bloodline fascinating, make sure to like the video and subscribe for more.